Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I came across this story today, and I like the story, so I'm going to do this story. It's not necessarily going to be long, but I do want to point a finger to certain things that are going on from the standpoint of the political space, because this is a political show. And this was a triumphant win that the polls, if I'm not mistaken, got relatively wrong. This is Andrew Gillum, and let me make sure everything is great from the standpoint of the show starting. Guys, first, tomorrow is going to be patron appreciation, but tomorrow is also going to be a birthday bash. So, you're more than welcome to come. It's going to be at 5 p.m. tomorrow. The show is going to be about 2 hours. It's going to have multiple segments. We are also going to do the t-shirt drawing on that day. So, you're more than welcome. 5 p.m. tomorrow, birthday bash, and patron appreciation. I'm going to be the ripe young age of 41 years old tomorrow. So that's going to be great. Growing old and being decrepit. Awesome. So there's that. I think that's everything from the standpoint of heads up for the show. This is Andrew Gillum. Andrew Gillum won the primary yesterday for the Democratic nomination for governor in Florida. You can imagine that they've been going around saying that Bernie Sanders has had no effect. Well, they were wrong. From an ideological standpoint, it seems that the Democratic Party has gone to Sanders. I don't mean the power structure of the party, meaning the people who are in office. I mean from an ideological standpoint and the things that people say and the things that people want. It seems to be shifting to the left, if not, have already always been to the left. Medicare for all, education. Those things have been decidedly Democrat. On issues of immigration, the Democrats don't necessarily have the lay of the land on that particular point. But the other issues, yes. Andrew Gillum ran a campaign like this. And let's see, I'll use this display for it. Good. And let's show it. This is campaign ad. This is what he ran on. So this idea that lefty politics don't necessarily hold sway, nonsense. This is what the people of Florida in the primary voted for.
My mother said the only thing in life you should ever ask for is a chance. So I want you to know that if you give me the chance to not only be your nominee, but to be the next governor of the great state of Florida, that I'm going to make you proud every single day of the week. So I want y'all to join me on this mission, right? And together we're going to take this state back.
Restore rights. Restore rights has to do with, you know, when somebody gets arrested, especially, let's say, for like drug crimes or whatever else, somebody gets arrested. If they get convicted, they lose their voting rights. They lose their voting rights. And many times when they get out of prison, they don't get those voting rights back, especially right away. Like, this is one of those things that's a big issue. You can imagine that if you have a lot of people of a particular demographic that, let's say, has been popped, arrested, especially if you know that the origin of some of the reasons, particularly the drug crimes, that they've been locked up in the first place was a racist policy by Richard Nixon in order to lock up blacks and hippies to prevent them from becoming a political bloc. If you know that, and all across the United States, you have people who are sitting in prison, and the majority of those people that are in jail are waiting to go to trial because they can't afford to get out, meaning they're penalized for all intents and purposes for being poor. They should have their voting rights back. They should have never had those voting rights taken in the first place. But that's where we are. So this restoration of voting rights doesn't just make sense from a standpoint of a humanity standpoint. It makes sense also from the standpoint of democratic politics. He's a Democrat. That makes sense. But it makes sense just from doing the right thing. Those people should have never lost their voting rights in the first place, especially if they're citizens of this country. And even if you can make an argument that they should, the day that they get out, they should have those rights restored. Yeah, you should. That's a good, my point is, good. That's a good thing. Let's keep going.
Flip Florida blue in 2018 and flip this country blue in 2020.
That's an unabashedly left-wing platform. He ran hard and fast to the left. Now, whether you want to say it's right or wrong or not, meaning whether you believe him or not, is secondary. He ran in Florida hard and fast, unabashedly, to the left, and he won. The person that he's gone up against has already started to appeal to his base in two ways. One, from an economic standpoint, because again, he's running hard to the left, but the other has to do with race. He's using dog whistles. I've said that whites don't regard their history honestly. I've never wavered from that point because I think that point is true. Dog whistles became a replacement for just being blatantly racist. And these dog whistles appeal to a certain segment of the population that lives in sewers, that drags himself out in certain scenarios and pays attention in certain scenarios. I gotta be honest, I don't necessarily know the effectiveness of this, and I say that only because these people tend to vote Republican anyway. But maybe this is one of those things where you stimulate a certain part of your base and you get a certain 1 or 2 percentage points, and maybe those small percentage points makes the difference between who's going to be governor of that particular state. So, the person that he's going against, DeSantis, has started hitting him immediately. Listen to the way, however, he's being hit. I think they have it in this video.
Now you have a tone issue about what this race will be like between you and Congressman DeSantis. Here's what he said today.
He is an articulate spokesman for those far left views, and he's a charismatic candidate. The last thing we need to do is to monkey this up by trying to embrace a socialist agenda.
2 hits. Monkey this up and socialist agenda. Now, personally, I'm not a big fan of dwelling on issues of race. I do that because A, I want to have a certain amount of credibility that when I call and say something is racist, that I get the benefit of the doubt of saying, yeah, he may be right. As an African American, I know that there are certain things that used to be characterizations. Monkey was one of those characterizations. Now, pictures, images, word, all those things. Those are the things that used to come up talking about African Americans in the context of them being apes or animalistic or animal-like. Is it a coincidence that a politician starts a campaign attacking an African American candidate using a term that makes no fucking sense, that nobody ever uses? If you can find somewhere back where Santa said, monkey this up, I would be stunned as shit. And not just that, it's not something that people say, it's not something that even sounds remotely pleasing to the ear, meaning it's not something that's typical verbiage. Why are you reaching for the term monkey in this statement? And in reaching for the term, why is that the term that you came back with? I'm more inclined to believe that monkey and socialist were the terms that he probably had tested to determine whether or not it would have a big bang for his buck with his base. And I would wager that that's why he's using these particular terms together, not because that's what he just kind of came up with in this kind of natural way. Monkey this up makes no actual sense in the world unless you're using it for political effect. And I would wager, and I'd argue here, that he's using this for political effect. 1, to hit his opponent, to get his opponent riled up. 2, to get his base riled up. I want to make my opponent overreact by saying something that's just blatantly racist, but that I can back up and say, I'm not being racist when I say this, I just say monkey this up. Why are you taking this a particular way? If you're a black candidate, a la Obama, you have to run against people who say and do stuff like this. This guy is being backed by Donald Trump. So you can imagine that if somebody who was African American was running against Donald Trump, these things would have to come up, and these are things that African Americans have to deal with this political space. Let's see how Gillum deals with this. It's CNN. So instead of dealing with real issues, of course, CNN is going to deal with this. This guy said this. What do you have to say about this guy saying this? So CNN does that. Let's see how he responds.
Monkey this up. What does that mean to you?
Well, I'll try to be articulate, Chris, and simply say that that kind of vitriol, and he's apparently given up the whistle, They've gone to the bullhorn with these kinds of tactics, but they're not going to work. We tried this one time. Donald Trump, this is a page from his playbook, basically tried to divide this country in my state. And I want them to know that Florida voters are smarter than that, that we are going to reject the politics of separation.
You don't agree with his campaign statement, Mr. Mayor, that he didn't mean that by it. If that's not the way it was meant.
Yeah, that's not what we meant by that. I'm not saying I meant that at all. I just meant monkey it up. I use that statement all the time. I totally use the statement of monkey it up in one thing after the next. It had nothing to do with the fact that he was an African American running in the race. It had nothing to do with the fact that I'm trying to, kind of get him to overreact in this statement, or at the very least get my base ginned up, while at the same token allowing me to step back from the statement and saying, I didn't mean that at all. Yeah, they left the dog whistle at home and they went for the bullhorn. And the only reason they would do something this overt is if they thought they could actually lose this race. I wish Gillum all the luck in the world. If he is indeed running on that platform, you cannot overreact to this. By the same token, stick to the platform that got you to where you are and drive this home. Gillum will be the first black governor of Florida. If they're using stuff like this, I would argue is probably going to hurt them in Florida, not help them in Florida. This is not a dog whistle. This is indeed a bullhorn. Let's hear the statement for his explanation of why he was being racist, or this wasn't indeed racist.
Here's the statement. Just so for the audience, he was obviously talking about Florida not making the wrong decision to embrace the socialist policies that Gillum espouses. To characterize it as anything else is absurd. You disagree?
Well, look, I don't know the phrase. Looking at...
It's not a phrase. It's not a phrase that anybody uses. Monkey this up is not a phrase that anybody... Screw this up, mess this up. That makes more sense. And by the way, even if it was a phrase that you would typically use, if you were in a race and if you cared, meaning if you had any level of, hey, there's an association between these things, and I don't want the media to pick this apart, because the media will pick this apart in the phrasing of the words that I use. If you wanted to avoid that, you would just avoid using the term. If you used it, you're using it for political effect. I hope that's clear. I often say whites don't regard their history honestly. And there's a percentage of the population that would look at this and say, I mean, he just used the term monkey. Why is that guy getting all up in ends about this? Why is CNN getting all up in ends about this? Why are all these people angry or pissed off or annoyed at the fact that he's using the term monkey it up? He's not saying anything racist. I mean, he didn't use any N-word or any, anything else. He didn't even call the guy colored. Why are they upset? I agree with you that there are times that people tend to be jump the gun on something that they may consider to be racist, or may consider to be sexist, or may consider to be anti-Semitic. And it's not. That area exists. There is always a gray area in some of the stuff in the way that we talk about our conversations, because sometimes people say things that they actually, really, earnestly, and honestly don't mean to say. And I'm sympathetic to people who get into those particular situations. But this is not the situation to which we find ourselves. The idea that Santos accidentally said this is nonsense. Santos was a political actor, and he knows exactly what he's doing by using this particular phrasing, this particular wording, knowing absolutely that they were going to immediately go back and say, I didn't mean it. Because he knew that the media and everybody else was going to already say it for him. This is a dog whistle. This is a dog whistle. Let's hear him respond. Let's hear him finish.
At the whole clip, I think he was clear about what he meant. He understood the dog whistle that he was blowing. And I understand that he intends to speak to a particular part of the base to incite them. Right. But the truth is I think there are a majority of us who disagree with that brand of politics.
I hope he's right. I hope he's right. I ascribe to the belief that the majority of the people in the country aren't that way. And because I ascribe to the belief that the majority of the people in the country aren't that way, I think he's right. I think they'll be penalized for it, not necessarily emboldened or assisted by it. That said, there are certain people that dwell in that party that this will be, maybe that this will incentivize. My thought is that they were always there. They were always going to vote Republican. But is this going to be enough to up it a few percentage point as opposed to losing the percentage point? Meaning, how many percentage points do you lose from this as opposed to win from saying something like this? I would imagine that his party or his team has already done the calculations and believe that they somehow win or get over in this. Not win the election in this, but get more percentage points than they lose. I don't live in Florida. I hope he's wrong. I hope he's wrong. So, Gillum being Obama-esque and the poise, and what I strongly think he's right on. This is a dog whistle. It's not even a dog whistle. This is a goddamn bullhorn. So, I'm not going to keep this one long because this one was just kind of a heads up of what was taking place in the Florida election. Hopefully, Gillum wins. He will be the first African American to win in Florida, and he will have won on a DSA label. I mean, he's running as a Democrat, but fundamentally, I think what he's running on as a platform will be almost indistinguishable than what Ocasio or what Sanders or what any of these other people who are far to the left running on. Good job. Good job. Let's see. Some real phrases are definitely monkey around, monkey see, monkey do. Now, monkey around, yes. Monkey this up. Come on. Come on. I didn't see anything, Balthazar. I didn't even hear anything. Let's see. Oh, prisoner need a vote. I didn't see that one, Belt. How are we ever going to get meaningful prison reform when the people who are best suited to comment and are barred from voting on it? Ban the box prison vote. That's interesting. That's a good point. Belt, I didn't even hear it. Maybe it was going on during the time of the video. I'm sorry, my man. But just the link at the top, the Streamlabs, you can click below in order to leave, to support the show. And in supporting the show, a little Star Trek icon would pop up. Typically, it should pop up. I've moved the browser thing to the top, so a little Star Trek icon will pop up, rattle, shake to thank you for your contribution to the show. Balthazar, thank you very much. Prisoners need a vote. His point in this, again, his point in this has to do with the people who need to reform the system are the people who are locked in the system itself. How do you know what the prison is like and what needs to be reformed? If the only people you talk to are the people who are getting paid to run the system. The people who are locked in that system might give you some interesting and needed advice on what needs to change in order to make it better. Yeah, prisoners need a vote. Good job, Balthazar. Balthazar's comments are always fucking awesome. All right, good point at the prison comment. Yeah. He's right. Jamal is drunk on CNN again. I am Sila, a racist dog whistle. This is my point. This is precisely my point, and this is why that works. Now, you look at that and you say, oh, that's just, he's just, it's just an honest mistake. Just an honest mistake. You can't be that naive, I am Sila. Do you believe that he's a politician, yes or no? And if you believe he's a politician, do you believe that that politician has thought about and has, to some degree, tested what he was going to say if Gillum won? The answer is yes, they do. They already know. Now, when he's on these networks and he's making these statements, why do you believe that the statements are off the cuff as opposed to the statements being tested and thought about before those statements are said? And if you believe that statement has been thought about, do you honestly believe that he believed that media wasn't going to look at this monkey thing? Why do you believe that he thought that the media wasn't going to look at it? Or that Gillum wasn't going to look at it in a particular way? I guess I'm saying you can't be this naive. You can't be this naive. Obama was not a liberal. No, I don't know. It depends on what you mean by liberal. Mrs. Tree, I wrote a senator years ago about implementing an organic lifestyle in a prison, or 3, homegrown heritage seeds gardening. And well, the problem with it is that people don't look at prisoners as, they look at it as punishment. They don't look at it as reform. Like, it's the least of us. It's the people who are at the bottom of the rung. They don't look at it as we want to make sure that the prison system is straight. It's throw it away and don't pay any attention to it. And the problem is that those people are going to get out at some point. And if you don't necessarily want to try to reform the people who are in the prison system, then you're going to get worse maniacs coming out of that prison system. You may be cozy right now, but you're not going to be cozy if one of those people get out that prison and mug you or rob you or break into your car. If I don't take my dog out for a walk, my dog becomes bothersome. And I'm not comparing prison inmates to a walk. I'm just making this true-false type thing. If you're not doing things to try to reform people in the prison system, what takes place when those people get out? Now, I'm telling you, looking over the information on this, you have people who go into the prison system and come back out just as bad, if not worse, because of the conditions that were in the prison. You have some horrendous, hellish gang life in these prisons. Imagine a situation where a person has to kill somebody else, otherwise they themselves will be killed. What is a person going to do? Is this the way that you want your prison systems run? Not to mention that you've taken away their vote. And you've done so for political reasons. The prison thing is a big deal. Prison thing is a big deal. So yeah, Baltazar, you're right. Creative experiments, for real. It was Hillary that started the racism during the primaries. Yeah. You're talking about the Obama being a Muslim thing. Yeah, it was. It was. But again, this is them using it for political effect. She was using it for political effect. I keep saying this because this is true. Race, sexuality, all these things are political items. They're used for political effect, whether it's the person of the race or it's a person attacking somebody else's race or sexuality or religion. They use these things for political effect. Their issues of class matter more than issues of race. In this particular case, the Republican that's running understands who his base is, while at the same token realizing that he can't alienate the middle. He needs to get across language that would allow him to say certain things while at the same token backing away from the things that he's saying. Calling him a monkey is a way of doing it. Or indirectly using the terminology and the phrasing of monkey, knowing full goddamn well of the history of the term. He also knows that there will be some whites out there or people within the Republican Party of other races that is willing to give him a pass on it. I am Silo. I'm talking about you. All right. Can we still sing the monkeys jumping on the bed to our kids? Is that racist too? I am Salar. Be honest. Be honest. Be honest. If we're going to have a conversation, be honest about the conversation. That's like the black Republican that was on the channel that couldn't explain why the other Republicans weren't on board for the lynching law. I am Salar. Explain that to me. Why are Republicans okay with the lynching laws? Why are they against that? Why are they against that? Why are they against that? Yeah, be honest about that part. Why are the other Republicans, why couldn't the black Republicans get the other Republicans on board with signing a law and pushing a law against lynching? Why? Why? I'm waiting. Explain it. Why? Just type it. I'll read it out. I'll read it out. You dwell too much on race. No, I don't. I don't dwell on race at all. That's the wild point. I'm not the one that brought this up. He's the one that brought this up. Race bothers you, I suspect, because you know what I'm saying is right. You're in a party of people who hate your guts. Or at the very least, a segment of that party. I don't have this belief that the majority of America is racist or hateful or anything else. I think most people are decent human beings. I think there's certain things in your society that can make people more attenuated to making sure their resources are intact. That I think is true. I do think you can have pressures in your society that push people to be more or less a particular way, but I don't think the majority of the people in the society are that way. That said, you have a Republican Party that functions at the behest of the 1%. If the people who you function at is at the behest of the 1%, how do you get votes? You're in a process that demands you get the voting of the population. Even though that if somebody looked at what you were doing in an honest to God way, what you're doing is representing the interests of the 1%. How do you get people to vote for you? If the people who you fight for and work for and get out of bed for in the morning are absolutely against the majority of the people in that country or in that state. You push for certain things that create certain antagonisms in the society. Race is one of those things. Calling them socialists is another one of those things. In the language right off the bat that he's using, he's hitting upon certain pressure points in American society. Socialists and monkey. Race and class. Without necessarily being overt in the way that he's hitting race and class. I'd argue to you, however, that monkey is a dog whistle. I'm sorry that you don't see it that way, Siler. It makes it difficult to talk to you because I feel like you're not being honest. And maybe this is an ideological divide on this. I don't have a dog in the hunt from the standpoint of going after Trump or going after this guy. I don't know this guy. I am listening to the language that he's using, articulate and all this other stuff. The fact that everybody knows that these things are dog whistles is the reason that he can use these things as dog whistles. I hope that's clear. If monkey wasn't attributed and associated with African Americans for the last 30, 40, 50 years, then this wouldn't be a dog whistle. You could say whatever you want. Do you believe that the statement was made, thought about in advance? Do you believe that when he made the statement on the air, that he had thought about the statement in advance? Meaning, do you believe it was a planned statement? Do you believe that he was speaking off the cuff? You have somebody who's running for governor that's a known politician. Do you believe that that known politician was speaking off the cuff? The answer is no. Do you believe Hillary Clinton speaks off the cuff when she's saying shit like this? Do you believe that she spoke off the cuff talking about hot sauce in her purse? Do you believe that when she gets and does an interview that she just willy-nilly winged the interview? The answer is no. He knows what he's saying. Now, whether you want to say he is racist or not is a secondary thought. He knows what he's saying. And he's using that language to try to inch out any level of the base or any level of the population, even if it's 1% of the vote that changes, that he cans. It is in his political interest to do so. Why wouldn't he do it? Now, you can say, I wish he was a better person, but being a better person, integrity has nothing to do with politics. Politics is about winning. At least our brand of politics is about winning. Hillary Clinton's hot sauce remark was definitely off the cuff. Maybe. You might be right on that one. I could be wrong on that one. Fair enough. That's a bad example. But certainly when these people sit down to do interviews, that stuff is not necessarily off the cuff. They've thought about that stuff in advance. And I have no belief at all that him using his monkey comment, in addition to the socialist comment, is purely done just randomly. He has a set of people that assist him in doing this political branding and political talking points. I put to you that this is just one of them. He knows what he was doing and what he was saying. And he cut the language in a way where he could back away from it, knowing that there will be people like you, I am Siler, who says, nah, people are just making stuff up about this. Not so much. Not so much. Stephen called, the hot sauce was off the cuff pandering. Yeah. I said it. I said it was a bad example. It was a bad example. But they have political people who are around them who tell them what they should or shouldn't say, who do polling on the things that they should say. For example, I hear a better one, healthcare. So saying Medicare for all as opposed to single payer. Medicare for all has higher marks from the sample of polling than saying single payer. Democrats started using the terminology Medicare for all almost unanimously and talking about healthcare. That's not bad. That's politics. That's what you should do. If the public needs a better way for you to phrase something, as long as you're talking about the same thing, who cares? But this is, I would put to you, I am Siler, that this is similar. The problem here is that you don't honestly acknowledge that there are certain people in this country that have a right-wing, Nazi, racist mindset. And if those people are getting into the political space, they tend to get on the right. They do. Now, if you can't acknowledge that, then you're not being honest. When I make the point of saying be honest, that's what I'm talking about. It doesn't mean that you can't have an authoritarian in the left. Stalin was an example, but Hitler is an example of the right. And when you have this ideology of, you know, hating immigrants, ultra nationalistic, those people tend to be on the left, on the right. Those people tend to vote Republican. John McCain standing on stage with a neo-Nazi. It's kind of my point. In the same way, Clinton panders about the hot sauce. Because that is pandering. It may have been off the cuff, but it is pandering. It is insane to believe that a politician wouldn't say things and cut things a particular way that is in their best interest to energize their base. By the same token, he fully understands that he would alienate a large section of the population, particularly the white population, that doesn't like to consider themselves or be called racist. He knows what he's doing. It's politics. It's just ugly politics. The sad part is that some people can't be honest that this is just ugly politics. So, all right. Gardner, we will never know if he did it intentionally or not. We can only guess based on our own assumptions. Okay. Well, my guess is it was not intentional. My guess is he is a politician, and politicians do things to try to encourage people, to energize those people on their particular side. I think it is laughable to believe that it was just shits and giggles. But okay. I live in Trump country. They are good people, but are racist as well. Yeah, you can have both. What is going on? I don't understand why I'm not seeing these. Baltazar? I just assumed nobody was giving. Super Predator. Oh, I'm missing them. I thought Super Predator was invented by Hillary Clinton. Turns out it was invented by the founder of the KKK. Is that true? Is that true? I don't know if that's true. Is that true? Yeah, for whatever reason, Belt, I'm not seeing the things. I'm not even seeing the alerts. All right, I'm gonna have to fix this, but I'll fix it by the next video, Baltazar. I'm sorry, my man. I'm sorry. It is on layers. It is on layers. It is on layers. I promise you. I was having weirdness with my thing. It wasn't even showing the display in the last video. I'll check it. I'll check it. Yeah, I'm amazed at how trusting some of the people are on this channel about this. But fair enough. And maybe this is the vibe between being black and white. When you look at this stuff, and there is a history of using certain rhetoric and language, and especially using dog whistle language. I am waiting, and it would be awesome for certain people on this channel when people like David Duke moderate their opinions on stuff, and when he started being racist using dog language like this, and people on the channel say, wait a minute, we don't know if they were being racist. It might have just been a quirk of their language. That's nonsense. This idea that people are supposed to be cynical, but they're cynical up to the point where you're dealing with people being racist with their language. But hey, maybe we don't know. Maybe the Republican who's trying to get out and is a Trump supporter and trying to get as many people out as he possibly can was just accidentally using monkey in relation to the candidate that just so happens to be black. Maybe it's incidental. Maybe it's incidental. I think you're all nonsense. I think you're nonsense. Races are everywhere, Jamal. You have no idea. Look, it's not that I don't... People are robots. If people have certain incentives or things in them where they're being racist, I don't think people are born racist. I think they're created. Races are created just like terrorists are created. Pretty much anybody's created. It's not that I don't think people have certain sentiments about other people who are not around them or near them or in other countries or in other areas or in other districts. Yes, I get it. I don't think that's the majority of the population. I just don't. That said, I'm cynical. And there used to be people on this channel that were also cynical. If a politician is running for governor, running for a big position, I'm supposed to believe that that politician is not testing the things that they say with certain level of polling to determine what works and what doesn't work. I'm supposed to believe that for whatever reason, that this particular politician, when talking to the media, is purely talking off the cuff. And the language that they're using with monkey and everything else, it just so happens always comes up when we're dealing with black politicians. It never fails. That this is just accidental and off the cuff. Nonsense. I think you guys are magnificently naive. I think you're magnificently naive. Adore Pariah. I agree with the notion that he did it on purpose, being it's the most logical. Yes, it's the most logical thing for a person to do. Likely hit it that some supporting base and petty reasons he wasn't making a YouTube comment from his couch. Yeah, it's the most logical thing in the world for him to do. Why wouldn't he do it? Why wouldn't he do it? I think it's stupid. I'm sorry. The idea that he wouldn't do this seems like nonsense to me. What is the thing that stops him from doing it? Good sense? Integrity? Are we also to believe that good sense and integrity stops Hillary Clinton from money laundering with the stuff from the FEC? Are we also to believe that it keeps the rich from screwing over their workers and employees? Why on this is it supposed to be an issue of integrity that stops them from being or saying things that are racist? How is this not the most logical continuation for a person to do in Florida if that person is trying to get votes? Supposedly, the guy's a Trump supporter. Do we believe that Donald Trump, when Donald Trump was confronted with the issues of Charlottesville, took a principled stand, or was Donald Trump taking an issue to protect his base, knowing that those people belong to his base? Are we to believe that the black Republican who was pushing for this idea of an anti-lynching bill and couldn't get any of the other Republicans to sign on to the bill, do we believe that they didn't sign on to the bill just because, for reasons? What are those reasons? But on this, hey, maybe those people who were using signs with Obama being a monkey, maybe they were also just mistaken. Or maybe those people who were talking about Obama from the standpoint of being a monkey during the time where he was in office, and the Republicans and those people standing outside with signs, maybe they were also just being mistaken. All of the people are being mistaken. Everybody that's ever used the term monkey, they're just being mistaken. Let's just give all of them the benefit of the doubt. That's nonsense. That's fucking nonsense. Drew Cop Cooper. I'm in an actual book, just in reference, not something metaphorical, but a real thing, a dog whistle dictionary. I don't think we need a dog whistle dictionary. This is contextual. A politician is trying to get as many votes as they can possibly get. That politician is trying to gin up as many people out of bed, from their jobs, from all these various areas, to come out and press a button for him. In order to do that, he's going to have a conversation with certain people who deal with polling. He's going to have a conversation with advisors, all sorts of people to try to help him to engineer a campaign through politics, through Facebook, through Twitter, through all of these various channels of communication to try to reach all of these various demographics all across the state of Florida. And we're to believe, yeah, I think it's just weird. That's all. A lot in my 69 years, I've never heard that expression. I have never heard that expression either. But currently, people on this channel believes that that's just an accident. Mark Benjamin. And the reason why I'd rather use discrimination or racism, because behavior that is attributed to racism is out of group hate. Basically, you can be the same great race projected. I'm not saying that he's racist. I never said that. I said he's using it to gin up his base. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I think it's accurate. I think it's right. The red GOP racist is going to ensure the left loses 2018-2020. Write it down. I am not worried about... Personally, I think this hurts him as opposed to help him. Otherwise, he would have just been overtly racist. I don't think people like being overtly racist. I don't. Which is why they use the term dog whistle in the first place. There are certain people who it hits and lets know that he's on their side, as opposed to having the majority of the other people being blissfully unaware. This is a pretty loud dog whistle. And I suspect he's emboldened by this idea of Trump and all this other stuff. But I think he's reading this wrong. Like, Trump didn't win because Trump was racist. I think they're reading this wrong. Hillary Clinton was a horrible candidate. Hillary Clinton being a horrible candidate, Trump just so happened to have these, said these things. But Clinton was a horrible candidate. The loss had more to do with her being a horrible candidate, not Trump being an awesome candidate. The attributes that they're attributing to Trump as if this is a way to get elected is similar to the attributes many of these candidates have attributed to Sanders and have used it somewhat as a model to get elected. Look at the campaign ads of Gillum, Mitch Sanders, and Ocasio. Many of this stuff is similar. It's a cookie copy. When the guy was running in Virginia, he started running somewhat of a hateful race at a certain point. The Republican ends up losing that race. But he took that same message in Virginia that this was somehow a great way to run, and it ended up being not so much. So I could be wrong on this. So fair enough. And if it's one of those things where the history of this country leads me to be somewhat overly sensitive into the things people say, especially when they're going after other people, also fair enough. But my perspective on this is not wrong because there is no objective perspective. And the fact is, if he's using these terms, I don't quite understand how people can be so cynical about the other stuff that goes on in politics. But in this very specific case, he gets the benefit of the doubt. Fuck that. He's using this term for a reason. He's a politician, and this politician is not out there just doing it willy-nilly. He's doing it because he wants to gin up his base. So this is what's been taking place from standpoint of politics in Florida, and I strongly suspect that the race is going to look like this with these particular characteristics. So yeah, there's that. Jamarl defends racist Democrats. That's funny. Show it. You can say the same about Kate's Law. I don't know who Kate's Law is. Adol Pariah. Exactly. Trump may not be racist by definition and believing that the superior or inferior. He just adopted the appeal to his base, but I think there's more just race. It seems to lean the way. I don't know. I mean, I think Trump's racist. But understand, I'm trying to make a clear distinction here. There's a distinction between a person who takes on an idea themselves versus what that person takes on to get elected. Those are different. There's a difference between a person appealing to a base because it is in their political best interest to appeal to a particular base, even if that particular base is unappetizing to the individual. They may still appeal to that base. You have some Republicans that aren't racist to any degree at all. They are corporatists, and they are to the point where they want to maximize and get as much money as they possibly can, in a sense of raping the public of their economic ends, expropriating the wealth to the top. Those Republicans do exist, and they may actually hate the other class of Republicans in the same way that you have Democrats who hate, or corporate Democrats that hate the real lefties. That can be true. It doesn't mean that they won't leverage that part of the base. You can call them the bottom dwellers. In the same way that corporatists try to motivate the far left wing of the Democratic Party in order to get their votes. Those things are true. Yes, you can have those situations take place. I hope that makes sense. Leveraging the wording and everything else to try to entice a certain section of the base to believe that he is somehow on their side makes all the political sense in the world. Again, I don't understand to the life of me how people are giving him this amazing benefit of the doubt on this, that he wouldn't use a dog whistle like this in order to gin up a certain segment of the base, while at the same token saying it's not me, when that is the most sane and rational thing in the world to do to get elected. But apparently I'm being too cynical. So yeah, there's that. There's that. All right, I'm going to end this here. Never focusing on the real issues ever. This is so dumb. Agree. I didn't want this one to last long, but I do want to call attention to the use of race in the political space. And I strongly suspect that this is going to be the character and the tone of this election campaign in Florida. That's first point. And two, the fact that Gillum's won. He may be the first African-American governor in Florida. Both of those things are big news, especially since they didn't expect him to win. So, this is our politics in the United States. But look, that said, this is a far left candidate. And you wouldn't necessarily be, insane or wrong to say that the guy's a DSA or is running on a platform that's similar or akin to the DSA. He won. He won. This guy can be your governor of Florida. And all of the talk about Bernie Sanders not having an effect goes away. Goes away. Bim Star is a conservative troll, so naturally he doesn't think it's racist. That's funny. That's funny. Well, Siler is not racist. Siler is just in the Republican Party, so he doesn't want to believe that the party is that way. But go Gillum, yeah. I want him to win. I want him to win. All right, guys. This has been a spirited conversation on race. Aggravating conversation on race. If I'm being honest. But a conversation on race nonetheless. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. All right. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through Patreon. Thanks, guys.